Good news in the realms of food as well. Food waste was one of the major problems of, well, frankly, the Western world. But you have this Food Savvy campaign, and there's some good news, encouraging news in that regard as well.
Yeah, absolutely. We have the Food Savvy campaign, which we're really proud of, and we're working with our partners, Norfolk County Council, on that. So it's a combination of the Suffolk Waste Partnership, which is the county council, and the 5 district boroughs across Suffolk. We're in partnership with Norfolk County Council and an environmental charity called Hubbub, who specialise in this area. But I think whilst we are seeing positive changes as a result of lockdown, and how people are interacting with food, I think we also have to take a step back and realise the size of the challenge we're facing. So I don't know how many of your listeners would be aware, but in Suffolk, we throw away over 50,000 tonnes of food waste every year. And to put that into what that means for people's pockets, that's about £730 per household per year, or £60 every month. So if you thought about when you sort of you get your wages each month, if you took 3 £20 notes out of your pocket and threw them in the bin, that's effectively what you're doing with the food waste.
That is eye-watering, isn't it? I mean, just the waste alone. Whilst, of course, there will be huge concerns that food, could be going to people who really need it. The fact that it's costing us a fortune is surely enough of a prompt to do something about that. What are we buying too much of the stuff? What's happening?
Well, I think that's part of it, absolutely. And I think there's some simple things that people can do to try and address this problem. So if you don't mind me giving you the 6 sort of main areas of Food Savvy. So the first one is plan ahead. So before you go out and you buy your groceries, think about what you really need. Have a look through those cupboards and check what you've got, what you haven't got. So shop smart. Then when you get into the shop, obviously, just try and buy the things you need. Don't. I was a sort of a simple one, but I always think go to the shops when you're on a full stomach rather than an empty one. Then you're not tempted with all those lovely things you see on the shelves. But buy those. And there's another thing we can do with shopping smart as well, which is coming back into the recycling realm, which is to buy those types of food that have less packaging. Because if we sort of buy less packaging, there's less to throw away. But also, when you do buy that packaging, try and buy things that are easily recyclable at home. But coming back to food, when you get your groceries at home, store them correctly. So, if things can go in the freezer, please put them in the freezer. They'll obviously keep for longer, or keep them in a cupboard where they don't get, they don't go off quickly. The fourth thing is portion sizes. We're all guilty of this. I know I certainly am. When you cook your food, make sure you're not overcooking, because a lot of the time food waste isn't just the stuff that you think, that's gone out of date. It's also things where you've cooked a big old pot of food and then you think, I can't eat all that, and then the leftovers gets thrown in the bin.
As Nana would say, when your eyes are bigger than your stomach.
Absolutely, yeah. And I'm not trying to be holier than thou here, because I know it's something that we all do. I certainly do it.
That also ties into the obesity issue as well, doesn't it?
Oh, well, yes, yeah. I mean, I'm certainly not an expert on those matters, but clearly, if we're sort of thinking about what we're cooking, the amount that we're cooking, then that's got to help in a number of ways. Obesity, food waste, saving money, as we mentioned earlier. But yeah, we also sort of know your labels. So think about the date labels and buy things to make sure there's longevity. So you're not buying things that go out of date within a couple of days. And then wherever possible, if you do cook too much, try and store those leftovers, because they could make a tasty lunch or a tasty meal another day.
Whilst we all appreciate, the perception that we're getting a bargain, 2, 3 for the price of 2, that kind of thing, that's not really helping, is it?
No, well, clearly that's the temptation, isn't it? You see something on the shop shelves where you think, that's a good bargain, and you buy it. But it's not. It's false economy if you're buying stuff that you then throw it away because you haven't had a chance to use it, or it's gone off while it's sat in the fridge or in the cupboard. So yeah, really think about that. Is it a real bargain? Is it something you need? If so, great. If you can use it up, wonderful. Save a bit of money at the supermarket. But if it's stuff where you're just buying it because you think, I might use it, then really if that ends up in the bin, that's just cost you money rather than saved you some.
It was quite eye-opening to see the panic that ensued when there was the distant prospect of rationing. I mean, people getting into fisticuffs over toilet paper.
Yeah, yes, yeah. Thankfully I didn't see that myself, but obviously we've all read the news. I mean, it's interesting sort of on that. Our food savvy campaign partners at Hubbub have recently done some polling to look at how people's attitudes to food waste nationally, and have attitudes changed as a result of COVID-19 and lockdown. And so they polled around 2,000 people. And what they found that was 90% of the respondents said that they'd had changes to their eating or cooking habits. And of that, 57% said that they had wasted less as a result of lockdown. People have really started to think about what they're buying, because we don't want to go into the supermarket and more often than I suppose we need to at the moment, and we want to make the most of the foods we have at home. And sadly, the polling also showed that around 45% of people were worried about just getting hold of those basics and having enough food on the table. So by thinking about food savvy, not only are you doing good for the environment, you're doing good for your pocket and your wallet and your purse, but you're also sort of making sure that you've got everything you need in the house for when you want it.
Going back to